they came up with a figure that about 14 million Ugandans and counting are suffering from a mental disorder of some sort.
Yes.
So one of the ways in which these numbers could be confirmed, or these numbers could be better given a better foundation or meat, to be exact, was to actually assess these questions, use these questions to assess the population directly.
Wow. So in case you are, I understand the census was extended. In case you haven't been counted, and you've had stories of, they were asking me things like, have you slept? These things are not for jokes.
Yeah, they're not for fun. They're not for government to troll you, but for government to actually understand. Because if you look at a figure of 14 plus, out of 48 is about a third of the population. And when we sit down and ask ourselves, we are 3 in here, one of us, according to that,
is mad.
Like they would say, because when
That's the language.
actually when someone talks about mental health, it's easily associated to being mad or being crazy, and quite often it irritates me to hear certain things, because earlier on I was talking to one of team leaders and telling them, when you punch in your Google search engine mental health, the associations that are attached to it are all negative. You find depression, stress, anxiety, and it's not so far away from what society thinks of mental health. Of when someone talks about mental health, written off, in fact, go to Gutabika. And then, yet we would love to get a clear understanding. Is it true that when someone talks about mental health, it's automatic madness or craziness?
No, thank you very much for that question. First of all, mental health we're actually talking about being mentally healthy.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when we have the negative side of that is mental ill health, or what I would refer to as mental illness or mental disorders. So when you find people referring to someone like, say, he has mental health, that is over the top. It actually simply implies that person is mentally healthy, much as they're not. That is not what they meant.
Yes.
So let's not. This is a very good platform to actually cut through the bone and say that, look, there is mental health versus mental ill health.
So it's like you're healthy, you're not healthy.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Yes.
Or you're mentally healthy,
yes.
Then you may be mentally unhealthy. Not just saying mental health, Reagan is mad.
No.
So actually now that means that in the midst of life, we care about a lot of different sectors of health.
That is true.
And we rarely pay attention to what the brain is like, whether it's healthy, whether it's not, whether it should be healthy, whether it shouldn't be healthy. We don't have conversations in depth. We're all about the heart, any other, but not the mental state. Exactly.
And that also brings me to another point. For example, Uganda, as a nation, we commit 10% of our GDP to health. So of that 10%, we have 1% being committed to non-communicable diseases. Now, when you talk about the heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and mental ill health or mental illness, it falls within that 1%. So you can see that really we are not putting a lot of emphasis there, and nor are we committing enough resources to mental illness, because we are competing, the mental illness is competing for that 1% with all the other conditions that I've mentioned. Yes. Wow. So it's very good that you talked about the heart.
Yes.
So when we're talking about health, we're talking about the physical health, and then we're talking about also the mental health. Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Learning never stops.
And it is at 13 minutes to 5 p.m. Julie, Reagan, and Timothy in the studios of Power FM. We're talking everything mental health, but we are we had to first understand, mental health
Lay
and
the foundation.
lay the foundation, and then we're going to be solidifying this conversation or building across the area of mental health in schools. And Timothy is here to help us understand so much more about many of these things. We are currently live on Instagram, X on the Spaces, and also you can check out our social media platforms on Facebook. And there's a post there you can respond by telling us some of the events that led to ill mental health while you are at school.
Yes.
And we'll be able to really get to understand some of those, because that's a conversation we are having. And we're going to be returning with Timothy, telling us so much more about this shortly after this.
Thank you.
An edge. Join the Cool Kids Club. No ID checkpoint at the door.
Power 104.1 FM, all about love. It's 10 minutes to 5 p.m. And every Wednesday, we always have Kablu Chair, where we host a very special human being, soldier for Christ, but one who's impacting society in the best way possible. Speaking of marketplace, these are the things that indeed we are called to do. Marketplace influence and for the kingdom of God. Before we left off, we were talking about, we're introducing the conversation on mental health, and Timothy laid the foundation for us. Mental health is not you being sick. It's actually the health of your mind. But in there's mental ill health. You can be sick or not sick. It's all under the conversation of mental health. So do not find someone probably dealing with something and you're like, oh my God, you're suffering from mental health. That's wrong. Totally wrong. In case you are just joining in, you are listening to Power 104.1 FM, where it's all about love. And this is Urban Edge with Reagan and Julie. Today being a Wednesday, we have Timothy Kalungi in studio. All conversation on mental health.
Yes, indeed. And we may, when you're talking about school, promotion is one of those things that we love to hear when it's school time, because when you're promoted, you're excited. But then I'd love to ask a question in that regard. Whose responsibility is it to promote good mental health within the school community?
Reagan, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. Let me put it this way. There are reasons as to why we take our kids to school for a start.
Yes.
When and where is informed about the location,
Yes.
age, and let's say the local policies. Like right now in the nation, every child should be in school. That's why we have Uganda Universal Primary Education and USE. Now, the reason that's why we take kids to school is such that they can be exposed to other experiences other than those that they experience at home or in the communities they live. So we have teachers in schools.
Yes.
The teachers are supposed to, their mandate is to encourage the students or the pupils such that they can be able to enhance the skills these kids already have. If need be, add to those skills. Now, when you ask that who is supposed to be responsible for the mental health of these kids in school, the fact that a child spends on average 180 days in a year,
2/3 of a year.
2/3 of a year in school,
Yeah.
the onus is on the school people. That is, and it's not limited to the teachers. It's also to every adult in the school to actually help encourage or create an environment conducive for the mental health of these students. Are we together?
Yes, we are.
So we have teachers, teaching assistants, we have even the cooks themselves and the cleaners themselves. I've worked with children for a long time. And it's not only the teaching staff that actually cause challenges for these students. While I was still in school, for example, we had the cooks to yes,
Like
to lay down the law.
Yes.
Of sorts. Those of you who went to boarding school understand what I'm saying. So every adult within the setting of the school is or must be tasked with maintaining or working towards a good mental health, a mentally healthy environment for these kids.
Wow. So if you're there and you're saying, as long as it's not my child, I really don't care. Well, you've just learned that as long as you're an adult and you are in a school community, it is your responsibility to ensure that you are so aware of the mental health of the young ones that are in the school, so that they do not have to suffer the way we suffered. Because truth is, some of us, you can confidently say that we went to military academies for school.
And that's also a very good point. Let me just cut you short on that. Currently, Uganda ranks as the #1 nation in alcohol consumption.
Whoa!
As per the recent report that came out,
yes,
the alcohol consumption report. Now, there is this notion that, well, we went to boarding school and we went through hard times, so our children should also be able to go through that hard times.
And
they are fine, and we're living anyway. I am a proponent, I'm a proponent of the notion that the reason as to why we rank #1
yes
in the world for alcohol consumption, for example. It is a coping mechanism. It is a coping mechanism to find a way of dealing with situations in our daily lives. So it's not by chance that we rank highly. All right? It's not by chance that we rank highly in alcohol consumption or smoking and the likes of it. No, it's because, like he said, his point that, I went to school and it was tough and I was hardened.
You will find that most of the younger people who really consume these substances actually begin from school.
Yes. Exactly.
Begin from school. Someone is addicted probably by year 1 of university, and you're thinking, how come you're just in year 1?
Yes.
But it started from probably high school, S1. It was already going on.
That is very true. And to shed more light on that is that when, for example, teenagers, when they are faced with issues that they cannot be able to manage,
yes,
they will always resort to a particular method to cope. And this method most times is the negative method. That is why they go off to actually indulge in alcohol, because it numbs the pain, for example.
And it seems like the immediate solution.
It seems like the immediate solution. And in a way, it numbs the pain, or it takes away the fact that I have to deal with it. So that explains it as well.
Speaking of dealing with things, and you've talked about, things that stress students, young children, teenagers. And we have a very painful conversation. I believe every African child relates.
Yeah.
Our parents have attended probably great schools, and they've become excellent at their white-collar jobs. And maybe I'm a creative. I'm not necessarily cut out for white-collar jobs. But my mother or my father really wants me to be an engineer. Even when it's not my passion, even that because our family
is an engineering family.
Is an engineering family. You must be a doctor. You must be a lawyer. And many a times these choices are made by our parents. The commonest conversation I've found at university is, the degree is for my mom and dad. Yeah, as long as I've finished it, I'm going to go out in the world and now find myself. The degree was for my mom and dad. It was never for me. Conversations like that. So how do reasons why parents take their children to school affect their mental health, the mental health of the children?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Let's look at it this way. As parents, we tend to want to live out our dreams through our children.
Yeah, so true.
In fact, at that point, let it be a stellar moment, because we have 2 minutes to 5 p.m.
No problem.
Let's cross into the next hour. If you're a parent, let it first sit in. 4 minutes after 5 p.m. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being a part of the show. You are listening to Power 104.1 FM, where it's all about love. It's Urban Edge, Reagan and Julie with you. And you've just listened to All In by SEU Worship, bringing us to that point where we still continue to dig into the conversation on mental health, and in particular, the school community. In studio with us is Timothy Kalungi, someone very passionate about this conversation of mental health, passionate enough that he is providing innovations and solutions to make sure that this whole conversation of mental health, first and foremost, is understood. But for the ill conditions, how can they be dealt with? How can society collectively deal with this so that we all, at the end of the day, have a better society?
Yes, indeed. And at 5 after 5, an amazing time for me to
5:05.
talk about. 5:05. Good evening to you, friend. How has your day been? Has it been good? Did you encounter some challenges while you are pursuing that dream that you are pursuing? Or in a way you felt like you haven't done a lot today? Well, here is something good, that you can take some rest and then recharge so that tomorrow you come fresh to attack the day. And trust me, well, I might be easily trusted, but I trust God, who blesses the works of your hands, that at the end of the day, you'll have an amazing story to tell of His goodness. Usually, around this time, we are diving to something, but today we chose, it's a Wednesday, we have Kablu Chair, so we're talking about understanding mental health within the school community. And we left on with something really, really interesting. Julie asked an interesting question that led us to a stellar moment of Kriade, when the school fees is provided for by the parent, when the pocket money has been provided for. You lack nothing as a child, and you were told, in our family, we are the white collar family. We do amazing. We are professionals.
We are architects.
We are not gig men. We are not hustlers. We are not creatives. What is that? We're not those things that are not easly presented.
Musicians back in the day were called as Badongo.
We're not Badongo. So how do you handle situations as a child, as a parent, where you're being forced to do a certain course that pleases your parent, yet you're like, bro, this thing, I ain't got anything about it, and it is stressing you. As
Or
a child.
even at a younger stage, telling a child that you must go to school, and they don't understand. They feel like, why exactly am I going to
Why
school?
should I wake up at 4 a.m.?
Yes.
5 a.m.? I'm a
Altogether,
child. I have no bills to pay.
How does this affect the mental health of the children?
All right. Just before we broke off, I talked about the fact that as parents, we want to live our dreams through our children.
Yes.
The things we never accomplished, or the things we failed at, we want to get them right. Why? Because we have the experience. And fortunately or unfortunately, it is actually a pressing challenge for every parent to ensure that their child is set up for a successful career, there is future financial security, and a good quality life. But however, your role as a parent is to observe, identify, find those strengths in your child that you can actually be able to enhance for their success. Your role as a parent is to aid and not to dictate, if there is anything like that. And this is where because I've been working with children for quite a while, we find situations whereby, like Julie mentioned, that someone who has been pursuing a degree, after graduation, they take the papers and they're like, as in, Dad, Mom, the degree is there. Now I'm off to pursue my own career.
Yes.
Now, we have got to understand that to avoid this, as parents, we've got to listen to our children. Many times these children don't get the opportunities to actually express themselves.
That's true.
They don't get the opportunity to share their joys, their pains, where they're stuck in life. And so if you as a parent have already set boundaries that, look, as far as I'm concerned, you're going to become a lawyer. Now, in case the child wants to have a change in career path, already you have placed an obstacle for them not to be able to have a meaningful conversation about a career aspiration.
Meaningful conversation is key.
Exactly. And most importantly, make no mistake, it will come back to bite you.
Oh, yeah.
It always does. Because if a child cannot be able to pursue that which they would really aspire to do, sooner or later they will do it. And you would have wasted all the resources, all the time on a bottomless pit, to be honest.
Wow.
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 That's a table shaking.
Table shaking, a parent. Your job, observe, identify, advise, not dictate. Listen. Listen. We repeat.
Hey,
listen. Okay, we are shouting, but parent, it's the pain of a child that we are projecting through. Listen.
Listen.
Yeah, Julie and Reagan are here, and the conversation is getting juicier and juicier. And when you talk about ill mental health or mental
Ill
health,
Yes.
you're tempted to ask yourself, what are some of the symptoms of a school-going child whose mental health is not fine? What are some of those symptoms that can be spotted?
All right. We have as many as 20,000 disorders.
Yes.
And each disorder presents its own symptoms. But the cross-cutting symptoms are when a child actually is stressed. And you can tell when your child is actually stressed. Or if you cannot tell, resources are available for you to find out. But some of the cross-cutting symptoms include, if, for example, your child exhibits signs of not wanting to go to school, and you're hell-bent on them going to school that day, without even listening to them, like you said, listening is the very first thing. Without even listening to them or entertaining their thoughts on the particular subject, that why don't you want to go to school? For us, we come from a school of thought whereby, why don't you want to go to school? Get into the car.
You don't want to study.
You've asked the question. You've asked the question, and you've actually you've provided the answer.
Answer with an action.
Exactly. Why don't you want to go to school? Get into the car.
You're being spoiled.
You're
wasting my money.
Exactly. Now, let's imagine this particular child doesn't want to go to school.
Yes.
Let's imagine this particular child is faking a stomach ache.
Yeah.
Let's imagine this particular child is actually saying that, well, at school I am not exactly having fun with so and so.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to break it down to the to as simply as possible.
Yes.
Because when you say symptoms, we would say lack of enough sleep and fatigue, tiredness and weakness. But I'm talking about the observations for a normal parent to actually identify that maybe my child is battling some form of anxiety disorder or anxiety regarding school.
Yes.
Right? Or the child expresses themselves and says, look, Dad, as far as I'm concerned, teacher X is not, doing this or that. The idea is to listen. Observe and pay attention. Taking heed of the simple signs, the subtle signs is critical. Now, a child can have a situation whereby they say that, look, Daddy, I have a headache. Every morning when it's time to go to school, I have a headache. I have a headache. But then at the end of the day, it's all good. So, like I said, the symptoms are very many, right? If someone is depressed, they'll be worrisome all the time, or they are spending most of their time sad, most of the day, most of the time. But you're not going to see your child being sad most of the time, because remember, you've told them to go to school to get into the car at all costs. All right? So before we even get into the symptoms, let us get into the way to actually identify, listen, and observe. For deficits in your child, you know your child best. So in case there is a challenge, you should be the first go-to guy for this child.
Wow. Interesting. Listening. I've remembered a story. And a given year, this is a personal story. Okay. Like a movie would say, based on a true story. I remember a given year, in November, my favorite grandmother died. So, because I was into season of mourning, my grades were low. So, when the director of studies was my dad's friend, called me to talk to me about why the grades were low. So I told him, you know what, I lost my grandmom and I lost my concentration. The guy laughed at me. He even came to class and said, you know, some of you are using excuses that don't exist. These excuses are not for Africans. They are for kids in a different world. And I was like, this man's not aware of the fact that we as people actually go through these things.
Yes.
So when Timothy talks about listening, like many of us as parents and guardians quite often don't listen.
Never listen. That's true. And in fact, now that brings me to a question: how behavioral patterns of those in the school community actually affect the mental health of children and students?
All right. Thank you very much, Julie, for that. Let me put it this way. First of all, to understand what behavior patterns are,
yes,
we can also refer to them as patterns of action or characteristic ways in which, let's say, a person or an animal can act. And it is over time, repetitive over time. Now, let's imagine that, for me, when I'm talking about mental health, I try as much as possible to bring it down to examples. Yes. Let's imagine that right from childhood, Reagan here grew up exposed to domestic violence and abuse in the home he was brought up in. What will happen is that he will find a way to cope and deal with every situation in life, or most of the situations in life, the same way.
Yeah.
So in other words, he has learned a behavior pattern, which can be expressed through, let's say, hostility. It can be expressed through violence. Then, if at all somebody has been brought up in a home where passive aggressiveness is the norm, of course there will be passively aggressive. You understand? So we have passive aggressiveness, we have hostility, we have violence, we have as behavior patterns.
Yeah.
But to get back to your question, that how does it affect? You see, the way it affects is that whatever you're exposed to, the experience you have, you will live it out in your adult life if it is not corrected. All right? And that puts us in a position whereby now when I am at school, I am a big proponent of what we call an emotionally available adult.
Yeah.
An emotionally available adult is somebody who talks you through issues or helps you navigate the challenges that you are encountering while at school. Instead of addressing a student or a pupil with what is wrong with you, the question should be, what happened? What happened to you? What is wrong? What happened to you? You understand?
They want to find out the
We want to actually find out the underlying cause or issue that is contributing to such behavior. All right?
Yes.
So that emotional available adult, any adult within the student's or pupil's sphere can be an emotionally available adult. I'm certain that all of us here recall that particular one person who actually aided us through those difficult moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Especially instead of using a stick, they offered a carrot.
Yeah.
And those are the people we credit
Yes.
what we are
Yes.
today in life.
My personal story is my math teacher in primary school. He knew that if he handled me well, I'd actually pass math. But today we'll be talking about math. But the previous teacher I'd been under, he was really, really such a bully. He would pick on me in class, and he was a math teacher. So I just went down and down the spiral until I was handed to another teacher who just started taking me through lessons, telling me, Julie, you can do this. And he was always so kind. And up to now, I've never forgotten this gentleman. I still have him here, even when I find him.
And what the gentleman simply did was to have what we call relational conversations with you.
Yes.
We channeled your energies into the subject.
Yes.
And here you are.
Exactly.
You know? So
celebrating numbers.
Celebrating numbers.
And trying them out.
Trying them out, exactly. Yes.
Yes.
So,
Interesting.
so when we have these adults in our lives who do not make our lives difficult, but instead make our lives easier, we are actually enhanced to perform. You are a case in point. We are actually enhanced to perform better, which leads to academic achievement, which leads to better grades as well, and then also better opportunities, and our lives are opened up to other options.
I think it also improves our cognitive,
exactly,
performance
very much
as adults.
So. Very much so.
Yeah.
And also you are better. You're in a better position to do the same, to pay it forward the day you find a child who is having challenges.
Wow.
So every adult is
Amazing.
capable of providing that.
Amazing. Are you the kind who is, what do you do? Are you the one who is aggressive, or you the one that is relational? Yeah. Are you the one who offers the carrot, or you're the one that offers the stick? You will study by force, by fire, by thunder. Well, it's time for us to just think through all this and choose to be better, and better stewards of the young ones that are in our care. 22 after 5 p.m. Julie and Reagan here. It's Urban Edge. The conversation on mental health in the school community continues shortly after this.
Urban Edge. Join the Cool Kids Club. No ID checkpoint at the door.
And at 25 minutes after 5 p.m., you are listening to Power 104.1 FM, all about love. I almost said you're listening to Urban Edge, but indeed,
it is.
It's time for Urban Edge. But the station is Power 104.1 FM, all about love, and you are with Reagan. Julie. In studio with us is Timothy Kalungi. The conversation is on mental health, and in particular, in schools. In case you are just joining the show, whoa, you've missed, but it's okay. It's very well okay. You can still catch up. And just to let you know, we are also live on social media, Instagram and Spaces on X. Please be a part of the conversation. You can also text in 0753104104, text or WhatsApp, and be a part of this. So before we left off, we had concluded on that conversation of what adults can do in the community to really, really be a part of the conversation of these children, the pupils, the students. What can they notice? Do they beat or do they offer carrots? Me, I beat. But Timothy, what are some of these prevalent conditions that you have noticed or you know of that are in school communities, universities, primary schools, secondary schools? What are these prevalent conditions?
Thank you very much, Julie. We have anxiety disorders ranking highest. Anxiety comes as a result of failure to deal with, let's say, the fear of something. Let's imagine that there are exams coming around the corner.
Yes.
There is that anxiety that comes in.
Exam phobia.
Examination fever, phobia.
Yeah. So we have anxiety disorders.
Yeah.
Then we also have oppositional defiant disorders, and this is we're talking about problem behavior. We have issues to do with, let's say, drinking, smoking, or doing anything that is in opposition to what you're supposed to be doing. Then we have attention deficit hyperactive disorders. whereby the children, let's say, especially in the low grade classes, the children they just have they just have this attention deficit.
That's the
ADHD.
ADHD. Yeah.
And that one I'm very cautious about talking about it, because most times even the teachers that are teaching these young ones, they're quick to label children that your child has ADHD without necessarily having put the child through, let's say, a diagnosis. You understand? So I'll use this platform to actually guide teachers of these little ones. Let's not be quick to label, because every time you label a child with a particular disorder, even then they start believing it, that for me I have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. Then we can have also post-traumatic stress disorders. Post-traumatic stress disorders are simply a situation whereby somebody has gone through some form of trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, post-trauma, you come out and you have these flashbacks, or you have these remembrances of what exactly happened to you. So those are some of the ones we have. But also in teenagers, now we have post-COVID, we have depressive disorders, which are on the rise due to the fact that we put them back in school early, or now whatever if they're grieving or any form of loss, they go into depression. So we have also depressive disorders ranking highly. Then also, I've shared with you a report before of let's say suicides. Suicides in students in schools for whatever reason. Maybe it's the anxiety of exams, or it is like now that case you talked about, a child being undressed. Remember this, we make a mistake as adults to assume that these children are actually capable of making wise decisions all the time. And yet even us as adults,
yes,
we are not.
We rarely know
what to do.
Yes.
We're stuck.
But you find that you believe that this child should know better, which is not the case. They still need to be guided. They still need to be heard. They need to be mentored. They need to be encouraged. So, yes, there we are.
Interesting. Wow. Lots of things to learn as adults, as caretakers of the young ones. And basically, if you are in a space, you'll definitely make sure that children under your care in school and out of school are actually taken care of, so that they come out with less challenges in regards to their mental health. So we're going to look at, we've identified, we've seen. Let's look at a child who has been identified going through these.
Yes.
These challenges. How can they be helped so that they do not gravitate into actual mental breakdowns?
Thank you very much, Reagan. Key here is to, as the adults around the child,
yes,
like I said, you have to take heed. If every adult in the school community could actually be empowered on how to know the telltale signs, because a person does not have a nervous breakdown overnight. It is a culmination of a number of things. I'll give an example of an S4 student who was found hanging in a dormitory in one of the schools some time back. One morning. All right? Now, on investigation, this child had actually been going through a very difficult time over a long duration of time, and no one seemed to care. No one seemed bothered. So if only the adults actually were able to know the telltale signs. But also remember one thing: the staff themselves are not equipped And one thing that sticks out is that I am not employed to actually deal with the mental ill health of students.
Yeah.
In fact, there is what we call a can of worms myth, that I talking to a student about their challenges I might actually make things worse.
Yes.
That if I talk to a child about suicide, for example, I will trigger something.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two major concerns. Someone saying that, look, that is not my role, and two, I fear opening a can of worms.
Yeah.
So I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Yes,
Thank you very
have.
much.
Wow, very interesting. And on that note, I think I should ask, are there or should there be, or how can they be created, spaces for parents and teachers to improve their perspective of mental health? Because I can imagine now there is need for workshops, seminars, parent-teacher association kind of, these
Empowering.
meetings, but they're not just about we're building a school, we want a development project, but they're intentionally about mental health conversations.
Yes, thank you very much, Julie, for that. This is one of the spaces. What you guys are doing is you're hitting the nail on the head. This is one of the spaces. Platforms such as this are very, very vital in stemming this scourge. For those who are listening out there, even if whatever number it is, this is information that is being imparted in the communities. But also, one of the things we've been working on since I last saw you, I've been working with partners. There is this group called CTI Africa. They're very big on digital health solutions. So they are saying that, look, we are devising we are together devising an app whereby just by a simple download you can have access to all these major resources concerning mental health and mental ill health, the symptoms of particular diseases, of particular disorders, and what to do and what not to do. Those are very vital resources. There is what we call telepsychiatry, whereby you can actually be able to get a consultation without necessarily having to travel all the way from Gulu to Butabika, because that is one of the biggest challenges. We have only a handful of national referral practicing hospitals. You understand? So telepsychiatry, you can be able to access those a consultation and without necessarily having to travel. Then it's also big on creating awareness, because without creating the awareness, which you're doing right now, we have people being stigmatized, people who are suffering from these conditions being stigmatized.
That's true.
And when they are stigmatized, they actually cannot be able to get help. Then there is also the improvement of referral pathways, where to go for help. I keep telling. Last year I told you that the number one psychiatrist in Africa is a traditional healer. You laughed, and you're still laughing a year later.
Yeah, it's kind of
laughing. That bad situation. It's hard, yet you can't help but laugh.
They are in the communities. They are easy to access.
Yes.
They provide the solutions next door.
Yes.
Something we do not. So they return more consultations than the mainstream practitioners. Are we together? So this is something that will be. This app is something that also brings about referral pathways, improves the referral pathways. That I'm having such and such a situation, especially for university students, for example.
Yes.
I'm having such and such a situation. You can be able to download this app and access a consultation, access the information that you need, access help without anybody even getting to know that you're battling something. Because also confidentiality and privacy are critical in or when attending to these particular conditions in the communities. So yes, many things are happening behind closed doors, and we're still looking for collaborations with entities. The only challenge is the funding. It's the funding. We're not committing enough resources, and somehow people feel or put the resources to other areas of as you can know.
Yes, so true.
True
So
story.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. And when a conversation like this is happening, if you are a policymaker and you know for a fact that a third of your population goes through some mental challenges, what do you do? Yeah,
Yes.
you push forward policies that allow more funding for help such as this. And days like this probably come down for you to remember, well, I need to do something to ensure that, well, my child, while they've gone to school, or my relative, or even a friend's child, while they've gone to school, they need to go to school where a teacher is aware of things like this, their role in promoting mental health, while they're at school. Even you as a teacher, as a parent, as a friend to a parent, basically the role and responsibility remains ours to ensure that mental health is on top of the priorities that we are promoting while we pay for school fees and get these children here. 22 minutes to 6 p.m. Julie and Reagan are here with Timothy. Such an enriching conversation.
That is very, very true, but I think it's that time we get to bring it to a close. And wow, we would love to go on and on and on and on, but one thing I'm sure of is the fact that when the tune is nice, you play it once, more than once, or
Forever.
play it forever. That means because Timothy is here for the second time, that means he'll be back on Kablu chair. And this time around, I think it will be a white chair. Because now he's fun.
He'll have a permanent chair.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Timothy,
so much.
for coming through. Always amazing having you. Always amazing to just pick from the plethora of knowledge and what you're doing. It's really, really impactful. I believe one day, one time, someone will walk towards you and tell you, I listened to you and you helped me.
Thank you very much. And also you guys, to Power FM, thank you so much for having me. And also thank you for the great work that you're doing. This is great because it's actually impacting the community directly. You cannot tell how powerful what you're doing is until you glean on the number of social likes that you will have on your platform. And even more.
Amen. Thank you so much.
But thank you so much.
All right, 20 minutes to 6 p.m. If you have a song that you want to listen to, well, we're here. You're the DJ. We play the song for you. Right.
Well, this is a perfect example of how not